thing that struck me about this particular tragedy that we saw just a few days ago was the numbers of people on the boat itself. 100. I think that's the first
112,
time.
I think.
112. I think it's the first time we've had quite as many people as that on one actual vessel. Does that mean the boats are getting bigger, or does it mean that the traffickers are getting bolder?
The boats are getting bigger, but that's so that they can move more people. It's a logistical solution to a problem that they've got in terms of
because I mean they're not really small boats anymore.
They're not. But nonetheless, it's also the fact that in this particular case, and that we've seen previous cases that have not resulted in anybody drowning or dying, other migrants who are not supposed to be on that boat at the last minute rush the boat to try and get on board. And that, of course, destabilises it, overloads it. It's already overladen, destabilises it further. And in this case, they also hit sandbar. And so, you know, there have been some deaths involved as well.
Yeah.
But it also seems that we've got, for a long time now, actually, for probably at least a year, there have been increasing reports of weapons being used, whether it be sticks, knives, or even, in a number of cases, firearms. And as I understand it, in this particular case, there are 3 deaths of people who remained in the dinghy.
Right.
So, you know, I don't...
So who may have died not from drowning, in other words.
So how did they die?
Right.
Because
did we not have an issue just a couple of weeks back? I seem to remember there was a character who was hit with a certainly gunshot wound.
And we've had stab wounds.
Yeah.
I mean, what we've got, the speculation in the media that this is sort of gang-related stuff, it may be, and certainly there are different competing criminal groups operating in northern France.
Yeah.
However, in my experience, what happens is they generally sort of work out a demarcation. There might be of who's going to do what and where and take what business. There's generally some sort of gentleman's, if I can say that, agreement between them. But occasionally that will spill over. I think, though, what we might be seeing now is not that, but is the migrants themselves who come perhaps from a more violent society, who are bringing the sort of behaviour that they would exercise on the streets of some African town somewhere to the North French coast. Yeah. And it is who can grab the boat, basically. Right. It's a free-for-all.
Well, presumably they haven't got there all the way to Calais from Lampedusa when they first landed, probably in Europe off the coast of Italy, by being meek and mild and standing back and waiting to be asked if they'd like to move onto a boat. They presumably got to where they are by being pretty bold and being pretty ruthless.
Indeed, and some of these people come from countries that, you know, for whatever reasons, have been incredibly violent societies. And, you know, if we look back, we look at the Congo, we look at other countries, even Mali, Niger, and even parts of East Africa, where the violence, the internecine sort of violence has been absolutely incredible. They've gone around with machetes chopping each other up. Now, I'm not saying that that's commonplace. I'm not saying that that's sort of...
But it does happen.
But it does happen. And if you bring people from that sort of society who have grown up in that sort of society, where it's a free-for-all and you'll grab what you can get, and introduce that into the sort of chaos that there is in northern France and surrounding this whole problem, then you're bound to end up with violence. Yeah. So there are gangs, there are criminal groups, but you know, there's this mix in there as well of, I would say, violent behavioural problems as well. Yes,
and judging by the numbers that are coming, you know, we've seen record numbers, over 500 coming in one day. We've seen this week more than 400 intercepted on Tuesday, the very same day that some people died in the Channel. So on the face of it, certainly, in the first instance, the Rwanda bill hasn't made one jot of difference. People are not being deterred from coming as a result of what happened the other night.
We're over 1,100 people more at this point this year than we were at this point last year.
Yeah.
So the numbers, in a sense, are increasing. So, you know, proving what a number of us were saying last year, that numbers were reducing not because of government policy, but because of weather conditions in the Channel. And then you've got other things. I mean, the government at the moment is I think, misleading themselves, but certainly trying to mislead the British public over Rwanda. Yeah. It is not going to be a deterrent. The numbers of people, even if flights do take off, and there are judicial reasons why they probably won't, and there are other practical reasons why they probably won't. But even if they do, the government figures are only going to be sending 1 in 80 of these people over to Rwanda. There's no deterrent there. The deterrent is going to the wrong people. It should be the organised crime groups and the gangs that should be targeted in terms of the risk that we put on them.
But how would you deter the traffickers? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Because, if you can't deter drug dealers, for example, who know that they face pretty stiff sentences in many parts of Europe for smuggling cocaine into Britain. Britain is now the sort of the world's capital of cocaine consumption, it seems, in terms of per capita. You're not going to stop these people from making the kind of money they're going to make. I mean, how would you stop them?
We're not going to eradicate criminality, full stop. But we can keep them on their toes at the very least. And
disrupt their business.
Correct. It's their business model we're trying to disrupt.
Yeah.
It's not the migrants who've got a business model.
Right.
And the asylum seekers. It is the criminal gangs that are marketing this, as we've said before. They are like travel agents. They market their business, and they encourage people to get involved with it. But the other thing is that you mentioned cocaine.
Yeah.
This is back to our borders. We have got porous borders. It's not just the immigrants, the asylum seekers coming across. It's the cocaine, it's the heroin, it's the firearms. So we have got to try and reset not allow the Prime Minister or the government to get us all fixated on Rwanda, but we've got to change the narrative here and say our borders are open. They are porous. All of the cocaine, all of the heroin, 97% of the firearms used in crime in this country, and all of these people coming across on boats and still in the back of trucks. Still thousands coming in. There's probably about 6,000 to 9,000 a year coming across in the back of trucks. All of this is coming across our borders. What are you doing about securing our borders against all of this range of threats? And that requires a more comprehensive approach. They're not doing it. And then we've got David Cameron today, or yesterday, trying to say that this is all down to Brexit, which it absolutely is not.
Yeah.
Categorically.
And that is just literally not very helpful at all.
It's dishonest to a point that no government minister should be allowed to get away with it.